This is so exciting, Brett, to have you here on behalf of the Sessions. We have been doing these interviews with so many different people. Your career playing piano, aside from other instruments that you play, has been so great, and the longevity of what you have done is magic, really at the highest level, because you're still doing it, but you're still doing it great. Where did this kind of begin for you with this professional music career?
Yeah, my journey started very young. I started playing piano at an early age. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. My mom had a piano in the house, but it goes back a little bit further because my grandparents had a farm, and they raised cattle, and they farmed, and my grandmother had a upright piano and an organ in the farmhouse. So
in the farmhouse,
in the farmhouse out in the fields of western Kansas there. So even though we grew up in Denver, we would always go to the farmhouse. So while the piano was at home, it came in when I was about the first grade, and we would go out to the farm on all the holidays and everything. There was always a piano and an organ around. So I would hear my grandmother play, my mother played, and so that was the beginning for me of really just hearing, music, and then the radio, because back in those days we'd be listening to the radio.
So did you have any recordings that you listened to at all that you had the radio, you had the family playing?
Well, in those days, there were records, and there was the radio, and there was TV. So my influences came a lot from the radio, because in the car or wherever you were, if I had a little transistor radio young, it would be about dialing into radio stations, right? And you would hear the things come through the little speaker, and it'd be like the Young Rascals, for instance, with a Hammond B3.
Great.
And I would hear, what is that? What is that sound? And it was that Hammond just screaming through the back of Good Lovin' or whatever.
Absolutely.
And it would be, I would get excited. I think, well, that's an organ. Well, I hear those, I can hear that, I can play that. And I would go and like figure it out. And of course, I didn't have a Hammond. I was only
that's an interesting point.
a teenager.
So you said that excited you enough to you want to research it to learn from it. That's great.
I think the thing is when something moves you to a degree that it does, like we are as musicians, we're always moved by something. We're moved by a performance. We're moved by seeing somebody play a gig. We hear a song or whatever, and it touches our core. We get something that really excites us. I knew way back then, early on, I wanted to play in music. I had no idea how I was going to get there or where I was going to go with it. But I knew when I was from playing the piano, getting some fundamental from the lessons, and then hearing more of the rock music coming in on the radio, I said, this is gonna be where I go.
So where did that take you from that inspiration to now professionally performing and making money playing music?
Therein lies the, how do you switch it from I like this to I can do this?
Absolutely.
I think that took switching my head to be like, how can I figure out, first of all, how do I get an instrument to play? I mean, there was a piano, but I can't take the piano to a gig. I can't, my friend, really what it's about is getting together. When I would hear these bands, I heard bands, it would be, how do you need somebody to play with, the person. So it's not like the day where the computer, you're in your room and everybody does all of this on their own.
Absolutely.
I think what's missing now is some of that. Back then it was all about getting together with other guys and playing music, because that's how a band's, you had to get with other guys to play. Drummers, the drummer sitting in a room by himself has got to have guys to play with him.
You're not going that far with that, right?
but still, as a guy that was taking piano lessons and then hearing guitar and rock and roll on the radio, I realized I needed to get an instrument to play, because I was hearing the organs, I was hearing the pianos, and I was hearing the guitars, which turned me on too, but I didn't have the skill. I didn't know, I could hear the keyboard parts. So I actually drove a tractor one summer for my granddad. I found a Farfisa organ in a music store in 8th grade. It was $800, might as well have been $8,000.
Absolutely.
I'm 13, whatever it was. And my granddad's wisdom said, well, somebody said, if you earn half, we'll pay the other half. I said, deal. That shows if you're serious. So I went and drove the tractor one summer. I'm listening to the radio. I knew I was going to buy an organ with that $800. Got that organ in the 8th grade and parlayed that into, once I had it, it would, friends in the neighborhood or whatever, the school, it would be about getting together and playing songs and figuring out songs.
Nice.
And so it was really, the motivation was I had to get an instrument that I could play and then take around to different people's houses and
Yeah.
play. You would either bring the guys to your house and your garage, or you'd go to their basement and play in their basement. So I think when you're young, you have to figure out how meet people that like the things you like, the music you like, share the interests, and also want to play an instrument, and either are taking lessons, or they hear something, or they buy a guitar or a set of drums, and you just start playing with other people.
Absolutely. But what a great first business skill. You had the passion.
I didn't realize it was a business skill.
Absolutely.
It was
and
more
you had the
like
passion
motivation.
For it, but then you earned that.
Well, I guess
that keyboard. But
I guess I did.
You
but
earned it, which is a
I
part
wanted
of
it bad enough.
Absolutely.
That was the thing.
So where did it take it out professionally? You start working with bands. You started meeting people. You started making some money doing this.
Yeah. We did make money. We sort of honed in our skills, and I was always checking out the other people playing. It was always about, if I can do this, and I'd find, another guy would show me a chord on a guitar. I bought a guitar shortly after too, because I realized, I could play these keyboard parts, but then I also dug what was happening from the British invasion, and what was going on then, and bands like the Beach Boys and things on TV I'd see. So I saw how cool the guitar was, and I thought, I got to learn to play the guitar too. So I got a cheapo, somehow, or my granddad helped me, a $70 guitar. So I had the Farfisa, and then I had a guitar, and I'm truly trying to be, the guy that could do that and do this a little bit, and then I could sing. I realized that I liked singing. I liked the singing. I liked the Beach Boys. I liked the harmonies of these bands. I liked that part of music. That touched me. Coming from Denver, it wasn't like a big jazz mecca there. It was more pop radio. It was more rock. That's sort of what sucked me in. It wasn't until later that I learned more about the history of music, learned about other genres of music, started appreciating other music as I got older. But young, that's what pulled me in, was sort of the organ sounds, the guitars, and this thing that happened in these bands.
Absolutely.
And I realized I had to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
Whatever it took, I had to do it.
So it pulled you in.
Sucked me right in.
It pulled you in. Interesting, because with all of this and the influence that you had, and then of course Fleetwood Mac, and you're touring to large audiences and crowds, was there, in the course of your career, was there a mentor? Was there a mentor that you looked up to, or that helped you to guide you to this success at all?
You know what, I feel like if I had to say there was one mentor, it has to be my mom, because she was the one that bought the piano, took me to the piano lessons once a week. There was a private lesson. So she was the one that saw in me that there was some, and the music teacher would say, he can play. He's got some. I would play Alley Cat by, some of this stuff, and hey, this kid's got something. So it was really my mom and the piano teacher, I would say, Mrs.
And they saw your
Miss
passion,
Parsons.
your dedication, Mrs. Parsons, right?
Yeah, Miss Parsons, with her Siamese cat, at her little house, every week, My mom
and you
waiting.
went there, you learned, your mom supported you, you did it.
That would have to be
that memory of having that, a lot of young musicians don't have that support. A lot of
True.
times from their parents.
That's true.
And you were very fortunate with that.
Oh, extremely.
And what they saw in you, what would you say to is there a business skill that you learned or acquired in time that has allowed you to maintain this success?
You have to realize at some point that you have value, as in the world. At first, you're just enthusiastic,
right,
because you really only care about the music. I could have cared less about, really, I wasn't thinking about making money at first, to be honest. Not at first. It was just about the music. I did, and then I realized, in the bands, we can play high school gigs. When I got old enough, we would play in bars. Even before I was old enough to play in a bar, I was playing in bars, because I would sneak in.
Found a way.
I found a way to get in. But then, because you realize you could make money, so then you start, the wheels click about, because you're not going to live at home forever. You've got to get out in the real world and become yourself and who you are. And I realized it was about dedicating my life to music. So I had to make a living. So it was about getting the band skills better. We got, we got a booking agent. We got outfits. We got whatever we could do to promote ourselves. Nice. We did, and we realized that it was about, we were in competition with everybody else, because we'd hear about this band down the street that was playing this, and they were good, and we'd check them out. There were Battle of the Bands
So
happening.
you wanted to one-up them, so you kept on improving
because
yourself.
Look, you know, you're out with everybody else.
Continuous improvement. That's a powerful business skill.
You just have to keep getting better. Because, you know, there were some early gigs that we probably didn't sound very good, and but we had to hone our skills.
Yeah.
It's like anything. You have to learn your instrument. You have to hone your skill in. You have to put that time and energy into working on your instrument. And some people are able to get off to college to go to music school. Not everybody does. I sort of took a different path. I took all the lessons, but I was actually got hired to play in bands very young. As a teenager, I went off to make a record with Mitch Ryder when I was 19, because we opened for him in a club in Denver, and I was playing the Hammond. I had a Baldwin piano. I was playing rhythm guitar and singing, and we opened for them. And you know, I'd been playing for years though in clubs already. We'd already been making money.
Yeah. But
they saw me in this band, and they had lost a guitar player, and they came back the next night. We were still playing, and we only did one night. When they came back the next night, Mitch and the boys, Johnny Bedanjic, the drummer from Detroit,
Sure.
Devil with a Blue Dress.
Yeah.
And he was like 16 years old. This guy was an amazing firecracker drummer.
Classic player.
And so I was they said, hey, we're going to make a record with Bob Ezrin in next month. You want to come play with us? And literally, I was like, well, sure, but I got to, you go, we're playing in Colorado Springs tomorrow night at a club. Can you bring your guitar? Because they didn't want a keyboard player. They already had a keyboard player. They needed another guitar player and rhythm guitar and singer. They said, bring your guitar, play with us tomorrow night.
So as versatile as you were by learning other instruments,
I was 19 playing keyboards and guitar and singing. A big motivation was Stevie Winwood, because Stevie Winwood was doing that.
Right.
See, keyboard. Not a lot of keyboard players played guitar too.
Right.
And there were keyboard players that sang, but there was in rock and roll. I just saw a couple guys that were sort of doing that. Stevie Winwood being a big part. Think about, you know, "Give Me Some Love" with that B3 and that voice. It was like, what is that?
He was doing it.
He was ridiculously soulful at 16 or 17 or something crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so it was about sort of being versatile. I always thought that was sort of one of my little keys, or I thought, okay, I can play that piano part, you know, but I can play that guitar part too.
Well, good for you to have that level of understanding at that age.
It took a while, but I was sort of juggling both, because I felt them both, and I was singing, so I felt like was my thing. I felt like I wanted to be a triple threat. I wanted to play keyboards, I wanted to play guitar, and I wanted to sing. So I worked on all those skills, and I was lucky enough to get seen by that band at an early age, and went off literally as a teenager, never being on the road, anything, out with these guys from Detroit that were pretty hardcore guys. I mean, a lot of them were bikers. It was like, I mean, I looked like, you know, I barely had a whisker then, you know. And here I am on the road, you know, traveling around with this Motor City band, and I learned so much. I went to make a record with Bob Ezrin, who went on to do, you know, Pink Floyd, The Wall, you know, a lot of great things.
That is so powerful.
It was one of Bob's first records too.
Oh, interesting.
So we were all young. You know, this is 1971, I think.
So what would you say in closing? You figure these kids are watching this in years to come. What would you leave these students with? Something that could allow them to understand that there is potential and opportunity in this business. What would you give them, Brett? What would you say?
I would just say, you know, if you want it, you bad enough, stick to it. Believe in yourself. Don't give up. Be that person that gives a little more than anybody else. I think one of the keys, I would say, for me was to also attitude. I think attitude, being relentless, and just never giving up on your dream, and just keep pursuing that dream, and you know, really believing in yourself, because you can do these amazing things. You can get places if you try. You can't give up. You've got to be able to open up to everyone around you, and you know, and learn and just take it all in. You know.
Good for you, man. Boy, Brett, thank you so much. On
My
behalf
pleasure,
of the Sessions.org, we're going to have this and let people see it.
Wonderful.
Your voice and your message is heard loud and clear. We thank you so much for your time.
It's my
on Behavioral
pleasure,
Sessions.
Don,
Thank
my
you, Brett,
pleasure.
so much.
You're so welcome. My pleasure, buddy.
Great.
Nice to be here.